Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And
we have black smoke.
Is that like the anti-pope? Where you just fired the coach?
There's no pope right now.
Well, the white smoke is when they hire the pope, isn't it?
Yeah, that's when they've decided that they have a pope.
They don't put black smoke out, do they? Or is that true?
I think that's true.
I don't know, honestly.
They say if you see black smoke, there's no pope.
Well, I do know I like the smell of incense. So anytime like I walk downtown and I smell it, it like gives you a flashback of church, and I'm like, what the heck? What is this? It's like one of those movies where the guy's like gets transformed back into a different memory. So I wouldn't be surprised, but he wasn't fired, right? I mean, I guess he was kind of fired. He stepped down. We're talking about Mike Tomlin.
He stepped down on his own.
After what, 19 years? I wonder if this is going to be like a Kyle Whittingham step down where he like was kind of pushed out because of the back and forth with the ownership. It doesn't make him look bad, right? Steps down and then he can kind of do his own thing. Honestly, I'm hearing like a bunch of just chatter where teams are trying to go crazy on hiring new coaches and they always want younger. So I'm wondering right now if we're even going to get John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin. Are they even going to get another look? They were talking about firing LaFleur. Did you see that after the Packers game? So
I would not have been surprised by that.
He had one more year on the contract. I don't think the Packers have officially said anything yet, but I've seen that they're working on a deal currently. And then there was a ton of smoke out of wherever the Chargers are now, LA probably still.
Yeah.
Where they're ready to run Jim Harbaugh out of town and just promote Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator, because you look at what Mac Donald did. He was defensive coordinator under Harbaugh, and I think he went up with the Ravens then when Harbaugh was at Michigan, and then to the other Harbaugh then with the Ravens, and now has the Seahawks as the number one seed. And so it only makes sense that Jesse Minter, I told you as soon as Tomlin stepped down, he would be the first guy I call. I was hoping like he would be in play for Michigan whenever they were going through the coaching search. And then, of course, Chargers make the playoffs. You can't wait that long, right? So there's a couple decisions that came into play there. Now they get eliminated first round. Could he be on the move? And you're looking at a lot of teams seem to focus on getting in a younger offensive-minded head coach. That's like that circle of like supposedly LaFleur, McVay, and all them. I believe they were all like offensive-focused coaches. And it kind of worked. But then you look at like what the Dolphins went through. Now they fire Mike McDonald. What's his name? Is it McDonald? There's too many guys that have the same name.
McDaniel, I think.
McDaniel, yeah. One of them. So he gets fired. And then he's already like interviewing for like the Browns offensive coordinator job because those guys are always going to be in demand, guys that can move the ball. And maybe they don't have that type of pedigree. Because like even Andy Reid, I believe, was always having offensive-minded job. Like that's his thing. He's calling plays, doing whatever. And it didn't really work out for him for a long time. Like you almost need a quarterback and be able to live off it. So looking at Tomlin, more of a defensive-minded coach, had a young Ben Roethlisberger, won Super Bowl early, right? Cowers teams. And then he never came back from that. So I almost wonder, does that hurt your legacy? It's very similar to what I've been preaching against for Aaron Rodgers. And I saw something today where they said like Aaron Rodgers probably played his last game, and then you have what? They have him come back, or he comes out to like the press conference, and then he walks around or whatever, just gets all mad and
then
leaves.
He talks trash on the Jets.
And then, but most teams, like no one was celebrating him. No one was like missing him, right? There wasn't like a walk away where when Tom Brady left, everyone was like, oh man, is he going to come back? Like everyone's talking about him. Aaron Rodgers, there's like nothing out there. And then Tomlin upstages him with the step down, right? But he's not coming back. Like Aaron Rodgers is not coming back to the Steelers. And even if they do, what coach is going to want the job where you have a quarterback that's going to be like, what, 43 or 42? I don't even know how old. I think he said it was 42 last night, maybe 41.
Glad you brought that up. There's two guys that would fit perfectly with a really, really old quarterback and just run their system. Bill Belichick's used to having a really old quarterback.
Bill Belichick. Are you kidding me?
So he could come back. And John Gruden has proven success of taking really old quarterbacks and taking them to the Super Bowl.
Well, first off, Belichick has a younger girlfriend. Have you met Pittsburgh fans, blue collar? They would not be good with that.
They would be very much on board.
They would not. With the younger girlfriend?
Yeah. Be like, they would want to catch a mermaid too. They'd be like, if my football coach can catch a mermaid.
Exactly. Do you think Pittsburgh wives are going to be okay with that? Right? It's cold. It's miserable. It's cloudy almost all the time. And you're like, why is it still cloudy out? And then you look at your coach and he's dating younger babes. No, that's negative. You guys don't want that. Steelers fans don't want that, right? Let him go to some other town. That's not the hardworking Pittsburgh Steeler mindset that they want, right? You need a Nick Saban where he has his wife and he's old, and then he always makes like comments about, well, I could go with someone better looking, but like you know, I'd lose half my stuff, right? Because they said something like he said like he could only cheat as if he had someone that had more to lose than him, right? So he said it would have to be Hillary Clinton or something, which is insane, right? Because he's like basically telling his wife that he's thought about it, right? But he knows he'll get in trouble and lose half.
He also knows he doesn't want to get involved with Hillary Clinton and then accidentally have to kill himself.
Yeah, so he knows out there. So like you can't have, that's the kind of guy Pittsburgh wants, a guy that's with his wife, it's old, he's like not getting in trouble, doing whatever. That's why kind of like, well, they like Tomlin. There's been rumors about some of the stuff off the field, but I mean, other than the Roethlisberger stuff and AB, I guess, it's been a pretty clean program. And these are adult guys, so it's hard. Like you can't really, especially when you get to the NFL, you always hear the jokes about like, well, the Bengals and the Raiders, they're always getting in trouble. And it's like, dude, what do you want them to do? Hire like bodyguards or teachers to like follow these guys around and make sure they're staying on task? Like, come on, AB, you can't be throwing stuff out of the hotel window. How many times I have to tell you? And he's like, I'm sorry. Don't make me run sprints at practice. Like, they're not going to care. These are adult dudes. Like, they're not getting babysat all around. So I don't know what Pittsburgh's going to do. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they brought in a veteran coach, but dude, it's not going to be Gruden either. What are you talking about? You're starting groomers. I feel like you're addicted to them.
No, I honestly, at this point, I think that ship sailed. I think he has a pretty decent gig now with Barstool where he can do his thing. The only thing that kind of intrigued me a little bit with that is how positive his Gruden camp was with Will Howard. And if there's a young quarterback that could possibly materialize, like I think that's going to be one of the factors playing in with whoever the coach is of what are you going to do with the quarterback position? Because you're going to, in my mind, you need to have an offensive focus. It's going to buck traditional Pittsburgh thinking and rationale because they've went from defensive-minded Chuck Noll to defensive-minded Cowher to defensive-minded Tomlin. But I think when you look at how shitty the offense has been over the last 2 decades, you have to do something to get the offense going, because watching Florida State over the last couple of years has prepared me for these Steeler teams, because you watch them and it is absolutely the most painful football that you can watch because there's no rhyme or reason. It's like the Texans had what, 4 turnovers, 5 turnovers, and they just couldn't move the ball. It's like, what the hell are you guys doing?
That's the offense. That's the Harbaugh offense too, dude. That's why I don't think John Harbaugh, he's like, oh, I'm only going to talk to 4 teams. Okay, buddy. All right. You do you, but people have seen your offense. And then they watch your brother's offense. That's the same exact thing. And they can't get anything going. And you just start to think, okay, these old guard guys, Jim, John, Tomlin, that's them, right? They think, okay, we're going to play the conservative game, whatever. I mean, Tomlin had an explosive offense. And I even think when Jim was in Michigan and they were throttling teams, he like toned it down almost where he was like afraid. And they kind of won that title in spite of him, where the Alabama game, he puckered up until they got behind him where he had to open it up. And by that time it was almost too late, right? They almost ran out of time and had to go to overtime. But it didn't even have to be that way if he wouldn't have came out tight. And I think they do it every time in the playoffs. Look at all 3 of them. Even counting the Ravens game against the Steelers, it was tight until things got like kind of wild at the end there, where it looked like both teams were playing for their lives. That never happened. That never happened against the Texans. It was like what? When it was like 13-7 and they got that strip sack, I forget what the exact score was because my brain just melted and I thought, that's it. He should have just pulled Rodgers there and put him out of his misery. Then next thing you know, it's like 30-7, right? It's like, oh, okay. And there was only like a couple of minutes left in the fourth quarter. They were down like a score. And next thing you know, they're down by like 4 scores. It was insane. I couldn't even believe it. I just, and then of course he's going to be upset in the interview, right? Who could go out there and think like, man, we were close. And it wasn't like Houston was even doing anything on offense. Their offense is basically Nico Collins got a concussion and he went out and I thought, all right, that's it. Bummer for Nico. You know, everyone knows I'm a big fan. Michigan guy. He's been awesome. I hate to see anyone get a concussion, right? Because you never know how they're going to come back from that. Steelers have got this. Steelers are going to come back. They're going to score. Whatever the score was, they're going to make it a game. No, he fumbles it. Fumbles it away. And that's it. So that's how people are going to remember the Aaron Rodgers saga. I had predicted like they were going to win 8 games. I didn't even know if I said they were going to make the playoffs, but I said they weren't going to win. And of course, that's how it played out. And the sad thing is, it could have been different. The AFC playoffs are wide open. Wide open.
Yeah.
And so now you have a playoff bracket. I'm going to try to bring up the updated one because I don't remember the high seed, the reseeding or whatever they call it, how it's going to look. But now I'm just thinking overall, why did they go ahead and blow it? And then why does the NFL go to 2024 and they needed Mahomes in the playoffs, ESPN? They're like, let's just have the bracket come up to last year's. So this year you have the Bills beating the Jaguars, which I think they had to at this point. And then the Texans taking down the Steelers. So, and then I talked about Harbaugh too. So the Patriots beat them in a hard fought game, which should have been a Jim Harbaugh type game where I thought they're going to update. And that's another thing with Herbert. I don't want to hear how great Herbert is because he stinks in the playoffs. Right? I don't want to hear one more guy say like, that's a franchise guy. No, stop. He's not. Even Stroud looked like he was scared out there. They won in spite of him. Show me. Beat Drake May. Because Drake May looks like he's not afraid of the moment. And every other guy out there looks like they are. Now, of course, we haven't really seen Bo Nix. I mean, we've seen Josh Allen come close. I don't think he's really afraid of the moment. I think the Bills' defense kind of stinks. Right? And he might have missed his window because of Mahomes. But no. Beat the Broncos. The Broncos have Sean Payton. I haven't given him a lot of credit because I thought like maybe it could be Drew Brees, right? Maybe it could be their bounty scandal or whatever they're doing. I don't know. I see now that A lot of scandals could just be made up, right? I don't believe any scandals anymore after the Michigan witch hunt. So now, Sean Payton, go for it. The Rams did not look good. Heck, the Panthers should have beat them. I don't know how the Panthers gave up that last score. I felt bad.
Yeah.
Bryce Young played out of his mind, scored like 30 points or something on the Rams. They should have won that game. And the Bears should have lost to the Packers. LaFleur puckered up. He came out hot. They had a huge update, or a huge lead. And the thing that drove me nuts about that game, Herb Street. Bro, you're talking about the missed extra point. How about you talk about the other missed field goals? McManus missed like what, 2 field goals and an extra point? And Herbert Street saying like, oh man, if they wouldn't have missed that extra point, they could have kicked a game-tying field goal. Dude, we didn't want him anywhere on the field. Are you serious? That guy completely blew the game. They should have been zeroed in on him, saying like, no, this guy blew the game right here. Instead of talking about like, oh, the Packers like missed opportunities. Like, no, they went conservative. The entire game plan worked. It wasn't like the Falcons where they got into like, they couldn't like get into scoring range or they couldn't run. They were just turning the ball back over to Brady to come back. The Packers took time off the clock, went down, and then he was shanking field goals and extra points. That's the only reason the Bears won that game. Only reason. So, I honestly, the Bears now, they have new life. I think they're going to beat the Rams. And then, of course, Niners, Seahawks, the Eagles did not look good. They're probably ready to run Sirianni out of town. But you can't just fire a coach every year, right?
I don't know. That's Cleveland.
Yeah, that's why, like, the Steelers watch them get Stefanski, bro. But, like, the Steelers aren't even in a good situation. Going back to them. Like, you can't look at the team and say, okay, because even the Chargers I brought up, Herbert, when that job was open, everyone was saying, like, oh, Herbert just needs a good coach. He definitely won't choke in the playoffs, like, right? Like same with Trevor Lawrence. Like, okay, dude, do something. Come back. I can't knock like Jordan Love. It's not his fault the kicker missed 3 field goals. Right? People are mad at him. I'm like, why? He scored enough. Same with Bryce Young. You're scoring like 20, like high 30s or high 20s, 30s, and you have a huge lead. The defense should do the rest. Quit going into these like weird 3-man rush type deals. Bring in the sack. Take the game over. Like I'm surprised some of these defensive coordinators just don't play the straight up defense. Just play the regular defense. Like Matt Stafford just picked the Panthers apart. Don't go into prevent. Don't go into prevent. Stafford was scared. He was running for his life. Just play regular defense at the end of the game. Let him make a mistake. And if he beats you that way, then at least you can say, well, we knew he was going to beat us if we played prevent. Right? We've seen his career. Nah, just let him play straight up. He wasn't doing good. So some of the coaching, it's crazy. The NFC West has 3 teams left. The AFC North, AFC East, or whatever it is, has the other 2 on the AFC side. So NFC, man, nothing. All West Coast teams. Let's go through Seahawks, Niners. Who you have?
I'm going to go this time with Seattle.
That's who I got.
I just thought
my man McDonald, dude.
Thought, I'm looking at Seattle's. At one point, it was a couple of weeks ago. I looked and I thought Seattle had fallen off, and I was like, they're the number one. They're like leading the NFC. I'm like, where the hell did that come from?
That's because they beat the Rams, I think. They had like a game, well, I don't know if it was week 16 or how many weeks there are in the season, but it was like the next to last week they had a game where they upset them to take the number 1 seed. And it dropped the Rams all the way to the 5th seed, right? Because the division winners are the top 4.
Yeah.
So I still think Darnold, man, you could make an argument he's the best quarterback left. I mean, Stafford, career-wise, would be, but in terms of this year, maybe Caleb Williams is making moves, but I would think Darnold, his back-to-back years where the Vikings number 1 last year? Like, you can't just be quarterbacking two different teams to the number one seed, and then people would just write you off, right? That's what I would think. But yeah, speaking of the Bears, Rams, who do you have in that one?
Bears are hot right now. They're finding ways to win. I'm going to go Bears. As much as I think the Rams are the better team, I thought I was disappointed that they left Carolina hanging last week. They were up quick. I thought, this is going to be a blowout. And then it was like, what are you doing? You're going to finish this game away.
I'm going to stick with the Rams. I think better team. They had their scare last week. Bears had their comeback. They could be getting hot, but I just don't trust Caleb Williams. It does seem like he found Loveland late, and I think that's his best weapon, where if you have Loveland, hit him, but Odunze has kind of faded. So if Rams make that adjustment, take Loveland away, I don't know if he can adjust on the fly. Now over to the AFC. Bills, Broncos, who do you got?
Bills Mafia, baby.
I'm not high on the Broncos either. I think Bills have to win. I'm picking Bills. Josh Allen, prove it.
That reverse psychology of them worked to a T.
Well, they didn't play good. Right? It's kind of won.
Well, they haven't been playing good all year, so why start now?
All right, and then the last one, Texans and Patriots.
Patriots.
I'm on board too. CJ Stroud, he's bound to choke.
Brought back the Belichick focus.
We're not gonna have another Ohio State guy quarterbacking
a merman
the Super Bowl. So you're gonna have Drake May out there. He's gonna be putting it together. I heard a thing that Chip Lindsey had like a quarterback coach that he wanted to bring that had worked with Drake May, and then Sharon Moore had told him no. He didn't need a quarterback coach. So the Patriots, they're going to be ready to go, right? They're coached up. I was impressed with them over the Chargers. I know Harbaugh usually puckers up, but that's usually a tighter game than what it was. That game was over. And so I think they're going to do the same thing to Stroud that they did with Herbert. And you're going to just see that those two guys are pretenders. And then that'll be it. We'll see what happens in the NFL, but I think now the bigger watch is going to be on the coaching carousel. So let's make a prediction there. We'll start with Tomlin. Do you think he coaches next year, and where?
I think it would be wild to have him go to Baltimore.
They would never. Would they?
Yeah. I mean, he's relatively close.
He can't drive to work from Pittsburgh, though. You have to get a new house, right?
Maybe. He could possibly commute.
Yeah, right, dude. That would be like killing your legacy. I'm trying to think of, I guess it would be like Saban go from LSU to Alabama. How many other guys just go to a rival? And then,
I could see him doing that. Like if he really has soured on like the Pittsburgh fans and how everyone's like, well, you haven't done anything. And then you just go to Baltimore.
You mean he's coaching out of spite?
Absolutely.
Because that could be. I said that it was similar to the Whittingham stepping down. That's supposed to be the big thing. We never really talk about, I guess not even West Coast media, but like Utah media over the last week or two have been going crazy because Whittingham has taken a lot of the players that he recruited with him to Michigan. They're like saying like, oh, he's going ahead. He's tampering or whatever. But then they forget like they did the same thing whenever they hire a coach. Most of the time across the country, if you hire a coach that already has players, they come with them. I saw Penn State has signed already 21 Iowa State players. Now, is that going to work out? I've already said that I don't think the Iowa State talent's going to work in the Big Ten. But then I watched a Signetti thing that you sent me, And he talked about how he just brought the JMU players with him because he knew they were winners, right? And so most people probably looked at that and said, I mean, I was high on Cignetti. He came out in that interview and said, like, he was taking Ohio State, Michigan down, and no one talks like that, right? Unless you're confident. And then he did it.
But he's an IUP guy.
That's why I think he's the greatest coach.
Of course he's reckless.
And then I saw an interview with Saban where they were saying, like, Saban told him not even to be a head coach. He just, like, stay a scout. Like, dude, just stay a scout. You're not going to be a good head coach. And then I didn't realize until the Cignetti interview that he took, like, a drastic pay cut to go to IUP, where his family was like, what are you doing, Dad? You're losing it. Why would you? Because, like, you always hear about these coaches and you wonder, like, Tom Izzo, how does he always have these players that should go to the NBA? How does he get them to come back for, like, their 12th year? And maybe they're just telling them that they're not good enough because everyone's like, he's a great guy. And then, but some players, they think that, okay, he's telling me I stink, that he's just telling me how it is. That's what I like. Right. And so I think wonder if a lot of coaches that, like, work with Saban, he just told it like it was or whatever, but he was basically manipulating them. Like, no, you stink. Like, you just stay here, trying to keep them as long as he can. But a lot of them did kind of turn over fast. Right. And then they're like, look at his coaching tree. And it's like, dude, he's rehabbing some of these guys that didn't coach with him to begin with. Does it fall under his tree? Maybe. Right. I guess all the branches intertwined, more like a weed going through. But yeah, I don't know. If Tomlin would do that, you don't have the same thing where you go from Utah. They kind of talk. I guess Utah, they didn't support him, push him out. In college, you can take the guys with you. So, like, he took all his guys, and then the recruits and things, of course, they're going to transfer with him if, like, you have a coach that's out there doing whatever. They enter the portal, of course they're going to go. In the NFL, Tomlin going to the Ravens, he wouldn't be able to take his guys with them for the most part. Maybe some vets or whatever they would want to play with them. I think the Lamar thing would be interesting because if you're looking at coach openings, most of them don't really have a quarterback. Now, Lamar was hurt this year. Do you bring in a system where I thought him and Henry would work better than what it did because of the way the offense worked? I thought he should have went back to more of like a Rich Rod type read where you have like more of like even like an Urban Meyer type power read game. And they never really did it. So you would have Derrick Henry getting hot, but there was nothing off of that. So once they started to key in on Henry, Lamar's just kind of in the pocket, like with his fakes, and he wasn't moving. Where I think if they would have did more moving fakes, like even like zone read runs and things to get just a little bit of extra movement on the defense, where if he pulled the ball, he wouldn't just be following Henry into like a pile of 30 dudes. He could be like outside stretching things out. And yeah, I know he was hurt, so maybe they shifted it a bit. But I was very disappointed in the way that worked out because I thought having him and Henry would have worked out great. Because he's not like a running quarterback that like would have been better with a catching running back like Le'Veon Bell or something where he just needs a little bit of space to help him get the space or whatever. And they're kind of going back and stretching the field that way with the running back out in the flats. Like Lamar could stretch that himself, but they never really seemed to do that concept. It would always be like more of like an old school traditional first dive, like on the triple option where the quarterback and Derrick Henry, they were like more doing the fullback run, but he was so close to like staying tight in the pocket that the defense was never stretched outside of that zone. And so Derrick Henry didn't even get the running lanes, which would have made it even crazier because he had a good season too. They couldn't box him up. I don't know.
Well, I don't think he's not like a really overly physical, like heavyweight guy like Cam Newton was. I don't think that he could really bang in between the tackles the way Cam could running like some of those power stuff.
And that's what they were having him do. I think that's why he got banged up, right?
Absolutely.
So, and then they were talking about like moving on from him. And then, of course, the owner's not going to move on from Lamar, right? He's the guy. So they just get rid of Harbaugh instead. Because it'd been weird if they would have got rid of Lamar and kept Harbaugh and like Huntley or someone, they bring him back in. And it's like, what are we doing? We've already had this. Like, you've already had the same system with different quarterbacks when Lamar's been hurt in the past. And a lot of the openings, like, you don't have a quarterback. Right? Like, where's he going to go? Miami? Because that's one of the rumors. John Harbaugh goes to Miami. Works with, what, Tua? Okay. Right? You're just recreating Baltimore, but you're putting it in the South. Right? The quarterback that's injured all the time. Okay. That might work out. Honestly, I would rather see Tomlin there, to be honest. I just wonder what would happen there. Or like if they bring in like Minter or another like heavy defensive type guy. But I think they've tried that before. I can't remember how many coaches they go through. They're like the Jets. And then like the Jets, like where would you go there? They could bring Tomlin in. Was Fields still there? Do a Pittsburgh recreation on the East. They would take it though, right? You got to look at expectations. Where if the Jets brought in Tomlin and recreated like the Steelers just making the playoffs, they would take it. They would 100% take a playoff run. 7 straight playoff losses or whatever he had going, the Jets would 100% take it. But that's all I have for the NFL. You have anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, just we're officially on Pittsburgh standby.
I know, it'd be fun. 2 coaching searches in 1 year for me. Nice. First one worked out, I think. Not sure. The portal is still open, which we'll start off with. The portal is insane, and I hear people complain about it, and I really don't care. Right? They're saying like, oh man, it was like that Jerry Seinfeld joke, like you're cheering for the laundry now. Dude, that's what most people are cheering for anyway. Right? They don't know the players. And then if a kid knows a player like Mahomes, naturally, if you're a Mahomes fan, like I was cheering for Tom Brady, I'm not cheering for the Patriots when he leaves the team. So if Mahomes would go to a different team and I was a kid growing up cheering for Mahomes, I'm not just going to stay a Chiefs fan, right? In the middle of like Detroit or something. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in Pittsburgh. Yeah, I'm a big Mahomes fan. I'm going to cheer for the Chiefs now still, though. He left, especially like if he would go to Pittsburgh or something like, oh, okay, crazy. Yeah. No, I'm not going to cheer for Mahomes anymore. Yeah, you are. Like it's whatever your attachment is. So the college things, my read on it is they had a fix, right? Which is still makes me bitter because Jim Harbaugh had the fix way back whenever they started to blackball him. Just share the money. Do a revenue share. And then do the NIL on top of it, right? Where you have buckets where everything is kind of on top. Now, would that have made the Big Ten take over? Maybe not, right? Because in terms of things now, some of those SEC schools, they just can't keep up. Can't keep up money-wise. It's not a coincidence that a school like Indiana that has one of the largest alumni bases in the country or in the world, whatever. They're one of the top ones. Oh, you also have Michigan up there, Penn State, Ohio State. Guess what? These are all Big Ten schools that have giant alumni groups. They are going to outbid for NIL no matter what. So I'm just going to give a recap for some people because I feel like there's a lot of misconception out there, and you have that horrible legislation that's trying to get pushed where they're trying to give athletes like a capped version of the revenue from TV and share it between all sports. And they want that to be it. Like they don't want people to be able to pay NIL, but there's already been lawsuits against it. And I think it's pretty much killed, which is great. Because the only teams that want to go back to a model where they pretend that there's a cap are the teams that were illegally paying under the table anyway. And I've seen some posts, like a couple, I think one of the Bama fans, like I saw it on making its rounds from like screenshots on Twitter and stuff where their guys are honestly asking now, like, hey, were the rumors true? Were we paying players with Saban? Because like now we're not getting any commits. Like, what is going on? How are we getting outbid by like Oregon and whatever? And it's like, yeah. Like T-Boone Pickens, dude, he has to be rolling over right now because he could have had Oklahoma State rolling. Imagine the Big 12 if he was still alive and you would have Texas Tech and Oklahoma State outbidding SEC schools legitimately. And it's not like there's only so much money and players that can go because we're at the point. I think this is the year is the tipping point. And I'm going to bring up Texas. Arch Manning says he's coming back. Not going to get the number 1 pick in Pittsburgh this year or whatever, like I had predicted. Could have been a great story. The Steelers didn't even get the number 1 seed because Aaron Rodgers took them to the playoffs. Or number 1 pick. So it didn't matter anyway. But Texas now is spending money to try to bring in big-time recruits. Well, guess what? Whenever you do that, guys that were there that were already getting paid, now their spot is getting taken. And you're paying a new guy coming in, doesn't know the system, doesn't know the team. You're paying him a lot of money. So now you're seeing Texas, other big-time recruits and big-time players from Texas now, they're jumping to other schools. And so you're almost getting to the point where Texas is doing a roster flip. Is it going to work out for them? I don't know. On the other hand, you have Cignetti playing for the national championship this week. I saw people were saying like, oh, a lot of his team is portal, all this stuff. Most of his team has been with him since JMU. And even Indiana had like 60% of people, even with the JMU stuff, I think I saw the numbers where like 60% of the team in the national championship for Indiana were recruited originally from or for Indiana. So what he did is he kept the base, brought in his own recruits, whatever, have been coaching them up, but he brought in veteran guys on top. Because like you're only going to get what? Only 11 dudes on offense and defense can play the bulk of the game. I know Cignetti, he rotates a lot on defense, which I think would drive a lot of people mad, but sometimes you can keep fresh, and then whenever one of your stud defensive linemen get hurt dancing, right, or celebrating, I forget what he was doing, you're rotating enough that you have other guys come in, and it doesn't even seem like there's a drop-off, and now they're throttling people anyway. So there are two schools of thought in recruiting right now that are going on. If Indiana takes it home this week and then Texas flames out next week next year, I think you're going to see a trend where teams are looking at guys that are bringing in fresh rosters, flipping them and trying to get them to like do a quick turnover. If it's not working out, guess what? We saw it at Texas A&M. The donors the money's going to dry up. And then you're back to square one where it looked like, whoa, so-and-so team, they were paying big time. Guess what? It's not working out. Something's going on at Ohio State. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you saw some of the recruit stuff that came out. I don't know if it's tied to like Heartline or whatever, but some recruit families have been tweeting that the truth will come out. And I've seen that before from other teams and other coaches and things like where a guy gets processed, right? They bring in another recruit over him. But some of these players seem like they were going to be starters. And it's not like Ohio State has brought in top talent. I mean, Notre Dame did the same thing as Texas. They're bringing in a lot of top guys. They're pushing out some of their own guys. Is it going to pay off? Because Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama still had top talent this year. It hasn't cycled all the way through, right? Where when they do the roster talent composite, and I think it's still rated pretty heavily towards recruiting class and not transfer class, I think. And so I think once they figure out and make the adjustments, we're going to start seeing some more parity where like teams like Oregon and USC that have been paying and recruiting a ton of dudes, I think they're going to start to show up higher in those rankings along with some other schools like, well, Indiana? Are they going to even last? Is this a one-time thing? Could Cignetti go up? Because like you could have, I mean, the most insane thing would be is if Ryan Day took an NFL job and that's what all the recruits are mad. And then like Ohio State hires Cignetti because nothing bad ever happens to them, right? It would just be like, oh, here he is. He wins a national championship and then Ohio State somehow lands them, which would be infuriating. But maybe Mark Cuban can keep him at Indiana. Because this is his best year. I think it comes down to, do they win the national championship? Matt, what do you think?
I think they got it.
Because Miami has been playing kind of good. I won't say kind of because it wasn't been like lights out. Beck has been hit or miss, but he did have the game-winning drive. They should have blew Ole Miss out, though. And then Chambliss has to, like, what, petition the NCAA to give him, like, a 20th year?
Yep.
He's like, come on, guys, I need that cheddar. Which, they opened up the floodgates with that NBA thing. Because now there are some recruits that have been, like, at JUCO, like Cam Newton. Could you imagine like a 28-year-old Cam Newton running around out there for Auburn? He could have won like 3 national championships in a row. And people would have said, like, that could have really flipped the script back then. All right. I don't know how many years he would have had left, but I think the COVID thing messed everything up when they started to give people extra years. Now coaches are coming out saying that red shirts should happen if a player plays less than like 9 games. Like, yeah, okay. Right? Because I've seen this happen. I think Harbaugh was doing it where you have a guy play 1 warm-up game early in the year, and then you wait as they progress, and then you put him in like late in the game. Like you put him in for the Ohio State game, and then you put him in for the Big Ten championship, and then the playoff or whatever. You could have him in like for 2 playoff games if you need him. And so whatever it was, 4 games or 5 games, like you could do that and still have dudes redshirt, where if you have him in 9 games, man, at that point, just let him play the rest of them. It's like, what, you just let him sit out the first 3 games while he practices and then he's like good to go? That's what I would think would happen. You let him play 1 warm-up game, let him sit the other 3 non-conference or whatever. I guess people have 9 conference games now, though. I'm going back to the SEC model, where you might not need some impact rookies and you could still redshirt them. But does redshirt even matter? Because if you're a team and your entire team keeps leaving you after 1 year, why are you even redshirting guys to begin with? Like, hey, save my eligibility for when he transfers to Texas for 3 years. Like, awesome. Because that would be my other thing. Why are coaches trying to redshirt these guys? Like, I look at the Washington guy, the quarterback, says he's going to sign a deal, signs the deal. I don't know what it is. Then he's like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and transfer to like LSU or wherever it was rumored. And then his agent was like, no, you made a deal, I'm leaving. And then he realized how bad it was and he went back. Very similar to how Nico did it when he left Tennessee. And it's like, all right, what are you doing now? The locker room's going to hate you, dude. So now you're in no man's land. You should have just transferred. Should have just transferred away and started over. And like Lane Kiffin was like panicking because he hasn't been able to get recruits to LSU, which is one of the reasons why I was talking about the SEC not having money. There are rumors right now where LSU's paying for so many coaches and things and buyouts that they haven't been able to raise funds for NIL. This is what I've been hearing. So Lane Kiffin might be in an even worse situation than what he expected. And it's the same thing where if he's struggling there and DeBoer gets pushed out of Bama, does Bama just go with Lane Kiffin? And then he's back in a square where he's like in a hell where every team he goes to has struggling for NIL funds. He's like, why me? Because it's partly like his fault for contracts for coaches getting fired and things like that. Because these schools don't have unlimited money. And even the ones that do, now with that TV deal, like the revenue sharing from the TV, that's going to every sport. So I've seen numbers where in the Big Ten, you're getting your $20 million. The reason that's in place is because they don't want the Big Ten paying more than other conferences. Okay, that's fair. But now you're getting teams that are lower level not being able to pay anything on top of that. So it's still doing the same effect where you can have an Ohio State get $20 million from the TV deal, split that up between all their athletes, and then put another $30 million into NIL for football. And they're still beating everybody else. And they're still able to get top recruits and whatever they want to do, they're doing it. And so all that's doing is making the Olympic sports stay competitive, which I think a lot of teams really wouldn't care anyway. Because I would be interesting to see if they split it up. Like, would a team like Ohio State or like Michigan take some of the TV money and split it with like their Olympic sports because they're into that, and then just rely on NIL to outbid these other schools anyway? And then these other schools would just give up on Olympic sports and just funnel all theirs in. So like they're basically paying like intramural people out there while everyone else competes in like in the Big Ten. Maybe, right? Because how are you going to go ahead and split it up, divvy it up? They want to stay competitive. And if they know their NIL can't match, that's the only way they can do it, is by funneling most of their shared money into whatever football funds they have. Because that's what makes the money. That's what makes the money, dude, right?
You bring up the money piece, and that was one of the big legislation things and part of the Florida State doing the ACC, is that they wanted to try to have a bigger slice of the pie because they were bringing more viewership to their games. And Miami, unfortunately, is completely reaping the benefit of it, because now that they're in the playoffs and they're having this longer extended run, all that money that was typically filtered among the conference is now going directly to Miami. So the scenario, the rich get richer.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because a lot of people down here that are Clemson fans are really annoyed with it. I've heard it a lot because they were the ones. Florida State and Clemson were the two that were going to sue the conference, that were going to do this. And then I saw the commissioner of the ACC like celebrating Miami for getting 100% share of the playoff money, is like $20 million. It just made me laugh because now the way that it works is they're going to keep their money kind of like a Notre Dame. So by Miami making the playoffs, they single-handedly probably put themselves ahead of the ACC for what, the next couple years in terms of money? Because they're not getting the same TV money, right? So they're just hurting everything. I was looking for a money breakdown so the way the ACC would work then is a lot of conferences, they do an even share. So like the Big Ten, when they get their money payout, it's like whatever, 50, 60, 70 million dollars. It includes the share of the college football playoffs. And that's why it's been important right now, because Big Ten already makes their base TV contract already makes more money than the SEC. SEC has gotten more teams into the playoffs, right? But they haven't won a national championship. I think after a certain point, the payouts are different, but the SEC hasn't even been playing for a national championship. So I want to say the Big Ten might get an extra share or whatever this year. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, especially because if the SEC is once again next year, and I think they have a 9-game schedule next year, which I'm pretty sure is going to even everything out, because a lot of the teams that were pretenders, Vanderbilt, Missouri, even like Texas probably this year, they're going to end up with another loss because they had the chance and they couldn't get it done. But then you're going to come down to, our team's just going to get rid of the inter-conference games, and I honestly think they should. Maybe play one, but like cherry pick. Someone was saying like, okay, look at the SEC's non-conference record in the regular season versus bowl season. And then someone said that they only had like a handful of wins against teams with a winning record. Because in the regular season, you can cherry pick and say like, all right, well, Northwestern's been struggling. I'll go play them, right? Only a couple like the top teams like Oklahoma, Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, they play each other. But like, didn't Bama play like Wisconsin? Or no, they played Florida State this year. Got rocked, didn't they? And then Florida State wasn't even good. So like someone else was at LSU. Someone played Wisconsin to beat up on them. And it's like, okay, Wisconsin's not that good. Like you have to almost have the basketball. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. But like the basketball one, you have the challenge where it kind of zippers down. So a lot of your top teams play each other. And then you get a full-on result from that as you look throughout the year. It doesn't really mean much in the playoffs or whatever, but at least it gives you a good idea of how many teams deserve a seed. And so now they're talking about forcing a 16-team playoff, but only if they agree in 3 years to go to 24. I hope it happens. I know a lot of people are against it. I just want them to have every conference get an auto bid. Right? That's my only condition. Is if you expand it, you can't expand it just to have the 8th seed SEC or Big Ten team in there, because you never know. It's only a couple games in the playoffs. One quarterback gets hot and they could win it all. Like look at Ole Miss with Chambliss, right? Very close to upsetting Miami again after they upset Georgia. And then they could be on a generational run. And sometimes in the regular season, that never happens. Like you see a team go on like a 3 or 4 game run in the regular season, and then injuries happen or whatever, and they usually don't have the depth. Where if you can heal up and get healthy, you see it in the NFL, that's all the difference that matters. But if you're doing that, I want to see lower teams. Because like I said, you had JMU and Tulane get in the playoffs and basically play top-seeded teams that probably shouldn't even have been in there. Ole Miss was a rematch. Like, avoid the rematches. And then have them play another mid-team. Like, have them play Bama. Maybe they could have beat Bama. We don't even know how good Bama was. Indiana throttled them, but then Indiana throttled Oregon again, so you never know. But I do know that the craziness is back out there. I feel for the Indiana fans. I'm not a big Big Ten guy. They didn't stand up for Michigan too much when Michigan went through their thing. But I've seen Ohio State fans have been accusing them of cheating, just like they did for Michigan. And if this turns into an investigation, that is insane, right? You can't have one team winning. And yeah, it's historical. They've brought a lower team and that have been with Cignetti for years and have won. Is this going to be repeatable? Probably not. Our team's going to try? Yeah, they're going to. Right? How many other teams have never even been close to winning a national championship like Indiana that are now going to be looking for a lower level coach that has experience, that are bringing players with them that can play at a top level and potentially supplement like a healthy NIL like Cignetti did and try to get to the top of college football. I mean, Cignetti could still lose. I don't know. Right? I think that would be worse for the ACC. If Miami wins, you know they're going to get a bump. Because like it or not, Michigan won, and then like Sharon Moore doesn't land a top 10 recruiting class. I think it was like 6 after his first year of head coaching, unless he wasn't coming off a national championship. Right? If Michigan would have lost in the playoffs that year, no way does Sharon Moore land a number 6 recruiting class as a new head coach.
But I think he gets some. He may not get all coming off you're going to get a bump from coming off the national championship. But I think even just making it is going to help recruiting, because you can you can spin it a lot of different ways and be like, hey, we were there with you signing. Maybe that's what gets us over the hump.
Well, that's where Miami, they can be negatively recruited against, these guys are known chokers. And that's why the national championship game is so important, where they're kind of like Texas. Yeah, if Indiana absolutely smacks them down, no one is going to appreciate their run, right? I don't care if they're runners up. It's kind of like Notre Dame last year. They took them a year to recuperate and really try to put in, and now they didn't even really get a good recruiting class. They've been paying for top transfers, which is how Miami got good in the first place. So maybe it'll work out. I don't know. But you can't have that type of showing on a national stage. You can look at same with Penn State, where Yeah, they were close to beating Notre Dame, but they didn't get it done. If Miami loses like a close one like that, I don't know if it stings as much because like that catapulted Penn State into preseason number 1. Miami, did they get a quarterback? I don't even know. I haven't been keeping up with them. But like, I think Beck has to be gone. Unless I'm wrong. But I thought it said he has like 3 years at Georgia already. So that would have been his 4th year this year. I think he has to be out of there.
I think you're right.
So, and who knows with the people petitioning for extra years. But I think that's where it comes down to Miami, the way they play it. Because Clemson had a bump from winning 2 national championships for a while, and you're seeing the tail end of it where now they're struggling to compete. People are grumbling on like Dabo not supporting NIL. It could be because Clemson doesn't have as much money, which is true. But it also could be just a number of different things. Like they're in the ACC, and people are still high on the SEC like narrative. And you still hear it from some recruits, not as much as you used to, because I've seen a couple of the recruits say, like, there's a shift. I saw an interview with Caleb Downs, right? Yeah, I think he declared for the draft, was at Alabama. And
yeah,
is that his first name? Did I say his name right? But he said that when he was playing at Alabama, every week was a battle. Like you hear the hype of like, well, we got to get up. It's Auburn week. It's like whatever LSU week. And then he goes in the Big Ten and it's not as hyped up from the TV perspective, right? And then he said that they're still in battles. It just feels like they're not as hyped up. And then bowl season comes around and those same teams that weren't hyped are beating the SEC hyped teams in bowl games. So at the end of the year, you think like, okay, maybe these teams were better all along. But the way the narrative is, it's like, okay, well, just playing a lousy old Iowa, right? Not that good. But in the SEC, it's like, oh, no, the Ole Miss always tough, right? Always tough. Never wins anything, but they're tough. And then this year, they almost won it all, which is kind of like in Indiana. But, I mean, Indiana could win it all. And that would be the difference. Because now you would have 3 different Big Ten teams win back-to-back-to-back national championships. I don't think that's ever happened other than like maybe early in like football history or like even the 50s, maybe Minnesota went on a couple year run. I think Michigan had a couple in a row, like way back in the early 1900s, but like not recent or even near modern times where the Big Ten has been in this position, especially with like Indiana. And if anyone, like if you go back to like COVID years and I tell you, hey, the Big Ten is going to go on a run of multiple teams win national championships in a row, people would probably guess like, oh, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Penn State. It's like, no, Indiana. No one would believe that. I think I sent you some history of Indiana as my last thing before I wrap up this week. The Indiana has been so bad that in history, like Michigan had beat them 24 straight years in a row up until the COVID year. So Michigan all time against Indiana is 62-11 for 849 winning percentage. Ohio State slightly worse, but they had a longer streak. I think, what did I say? Was it 34? 34 in a row, but they're 80-13-5 against them. How the heck they have 5 ties, I'll never know. But their win percentage is 8-16. So slightly worse than Michigan, but pretty much domination. They're the losingest program in college football history. They have 715 losses to 521 wins. And so they're turning this around with NIL and a coach that comes in and is able to kind of rebuild based on veteran players and have it out there to the point where if Indiana wins it all, any college football program, I don't care if it's a team like NC State that really has never won anything, they have to be thinking that if they can get their coach, they can win it all. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams like this start to kind of look at it from a James Franklin perspective. You have a veteran coach. They keep saying, like, I need an extension. I need this, X, Y, Z. You're going to see teams say, no. Because why? Why am I paying? That's one of the things that like I think the government's trying to do. I don't know if you saw this part of it, but like they're trying to cap like coaching salaries at like $100,000. Like, can you imagine the cat's already out of the bag? And first off, it's not going to matter because they'll still find a workaround. Because aren't a lot of the teams, don't they have like, oh, they're getting XYZ from the school, the state or whatever. And it's like, they're the highest paid guy in the state. He makes $200,000. And then he gets a $7 million bonus from XYZ football fund. And it's like, yeah, okay, buddy. They're just getting a bonus every year. Like guaranteed for what him not doing weird stuff on OnlyFans. Like, all right, how do I get this bonus? Just don't screw up, bro. Literally, just come to work. Don't be a jerk. Don't do anything weird. Don't get yourself fired. And you get the bonus. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm in. And so that's where you think anyone can do this. But I think there has to be a shift. And I've been wrong about like the NBA. People keep paying for the NBA TV contract because it gives them something to broadcast and is probably cheap to make because you just have, like I said, you have the fixed cameras in the NBA. You're only paying the same couple of dudes every year to talk about every game, right? It seems like it's the same guys that have been on TV for like 20 years. And then their kids get into it. Like, was it Noah and Ian Eagle or whatever their names are? Like their kid just shows up and he's just there doing the same stuff his dad's doing. Like, I'm sure that was a great interview process. Like a Step Brothers where he's like standing behind his son, throwing the interview like, okay, yeah, we'll hire him. Thanks. Or he brought his kid to work day and then he just never left. He's just there. Like, hey, I'm going to work today with my son. They're like, all right, awesome. Great. Way to work that in there. But I don't think there's any way to go back because some team like Texas is going to be willing to pay for it. And that's why I think the NIL thing is so important because without it being public, players are kind of talk to each other and kind of know like, all right, well, we know what the salary cap is for the entire athletic department. It's $20 million or whatever it is. NILs between schools are going to vary, but if a school is getting a ton of money and they're not getting a ton of wins, do they keep getting that much NIL fund, or is that kind of what the real truth is with Ohio State? It's not that Ryan Day's leaving. It's more that players have been promised X, Y, and Z. They don't get this playing time they're promised, or they don't get the money they're promised. And then, to top it off, they lose, so they're not even winning a championship. They're not winning a Big Ten championship even. So the players are there for what? And then their position coaches are leaving. So how are you selling them on that future? And that's where I saw a lot of things where Oregon, I think both their coordinators are taking different jobs, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you had Indiana come in prepared because guess what? I don't think any of their coaches are going anywhere. They're locked in. They're ready to win. And that's another thing.
They go to the Steelers.
What did you say? Go to the Steelers?
Yeah, unless they get signed to the Steelers.
Too late, though. The championship will be over by then. Unless Tomlin did it to sabotage Indiana right before the championship game. And Steelers have been on the horn like the day and a half before. Because I think that is what is important. Like you look at Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, he had his staff. They won. He took mostly all of them to the Chargers. You have Cignetti, his staff. They stuck together with him. He said, like, every time he makes a move, he tells them, like, hey, I'm interviewing XYZ. I'm planning on bringing you with me if you want to come. Because, like,
that'd be the greatest burn. They're like a true water boy moment. They win the Natty, and then he announces he's going to the Steelers, and Indiana fans are like, and we stink again.
Well, if Cignetti goes, that's another prospect where he is a Pittsburgh guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
So if he wins a national championship, because my tears are, people always say like, well, Saban's like the greatest college coach. To me, there should be really no separation, right? Just think of who the greatest coaches are of all time. A guy like Pete Carroll winning at both levels, that's insane. A little bit lower than him, you have Jim Harbaugh winning at both levels. If he wins a Super Bowl, then you go ahead and you elevate those two guys. I think like Jimmy Johnson was a Barry Switzer. Some other ones that we've talked about before that have won on both levels. Or you have a guy like Belichick, where he wins so much and then he sabotages it by going to college and seeing that he's not that good. And then people are talking like maybe it was all Tom Brady. Because like Andy Reid, coached forever, didn't really win anything. Patrick Mahomes come around. Is Andy Reid really this great coach they talk about? I don't know, right? Mahomes gets hurt. Let's see how long Mahomes' career goes. If he goes somewhere else with a different coach and rattles off 3 more Super Bowls, I'm going to think it was all Mahomes, right? Like Tom Brady only won 1 with the Bucs, but it was very clear when he left that it was him. And so Saban, yeah, he won at LSU. He won at Alabama. Those were 2 programs heavily rumored to be involved in bagmen. He goes to Michigan State, doesn't really win anything there. Goes to the Miami Dolphins, doesn't really win anything there. Okay, what am I supposed to believe now? Like at least some of the other legendary coaches like Paterno and Bobby Bowden, you brought up a program from nothing. Like there's a different level there that I think you also have to include, not just the guys jumping from college to pro. Because like what Cignetti did in such a short time, in modern time, he's basically like the modern Joe Paterno or Bobby Bowden, where he could have built Indiana into the Big Ten's, 6th superpower? Because if you have Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, and Oregon, even though Oregon hasn't even won a national championship, so maybe they're not even in it. So you have 4 teams off the top of my head that could win a national championship and have won one, I would say, in recent history. I think Penn State would be the only one that hasn't won it since the 80s. And then, so like Michigan has won 2, Ohio State has won 3, and USC has won 2, didn't they? Maybe 3 since like 2000 or around there. I think Michigan is 97. So like if you go from back then, Penn State hasn't won one for a long time. They're more like a Notre Dame, but I would still include them at that upper tier. If Indiana wins 1, and then, oh my gosh, like what if they win 2 or 3? That would be an insanity that a lot of other teams are going to be mad about. Texas throwing tons of money around, haven't been able to win. A&M throwing tons of money around, haven't been able to win. Oregon throwing tons of money around. And then your conference mate that you just joined a random conference that pays you not even full shares, right? Oregon doesn't get full shares for the conference. They get a discount rate. And then you watch one of their bottom feeders win the national championships after they railroaded you on national television like the week before. So bad that people were embarrassed for Oregon and Dan Lanning. And Dan Lanning, remember, he's not even like a great guy. I don't know if it was the Michigan or one of the other teams they beat. He called timeout so that his players could watch the fans leave the stadium. And like that was his post-game interview, like a weird thing like that. And then he was all hopped up after that Penn State win. Nah, get him out of here. People were saying like Dan Lanning is a great coach. He's one of the best in the Big Ten. I'm like, what has he done? Won a bunch of games he's supposed to win. Maybe last year winning the Big Ten could have been a great accomplishment, but I'm glad Cignetti put him in his place. That's my last thought. You have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think we pretty much covered it this week.
Who do you got in the championship? You got Indiana?
Going IUP proud.
I kind of really want Indiana to win, so I'm going to pick Miami as a reverse jinx, even though since I said that, hopefully it doesn't jinx me. But I think the Big Ten narrative outweighs, like Miami to me is a safe second because it's not an SEC school. They're really not competing with the Big Ten schools. Yeah, the Big Tens get a lot of players from Miami, but in recent times, Ohio State and Michigan have been pulling a lot from Texas and California too. So it's not like a decade ago where or 2 decades ago where a lot of top talent was hidden in Florida. I think now it's more spread out because of like the internet age, like recruits can get their stuff out there. And so
I do think the portal is going to be closing here within the next week. So that'll be something to keep an eye on to see on where the final resting place for a bunch of these recruits are going to be.
Well, it's open till the 16th. So when the championship game's over, Thursday night, I think it's the Thursday, right? Isn't it the 15th? So you're going to have a bunch of guys from probably the losing team enter the portal that last day. Remember, the 16th closes the portal entry. So for those that don't know, I should have explained this earlier. Players can enter up until the 16th. When that closes, anybody that put their name in, the team doesn't have to take them back. Number one. So if you put your name in the portal and your team, like Texas, says, okay, well, we're just going to recruit over you, and then they get a sign a player that's maybe a higher recruit, then you try to come back and they're like, sorry, you lost your spot. You're stuck. Right? So just because your name's in there doesn't mean that you have a spot. Now, could you come back? Yes. I don't know if there's a deadline. At least it's not right away. So even if as long as they're in the portal, they still have time to find a new team, probably before like the semester starts, I guess, or whenever. I guess it'd be up to the school enrollment date. I think a lot of schools start around the 20th or right after MLK weekend. So you'd have another week or two. I guess that would be the same weekend though, right? 16th to like the 20th or something.
Get your registration in.
Yeah, whatever the last registration date is, if you're trying to get into spring practice, that would be the thing. If your school does quarters or something, it might be different, but I think it would hurt more for the ACC schools, just because if Miami wins a natty, NC State and schools like that, even Florida State to a degree, are going to have a tougher time to compete when a team wins a national championship and then gets to keep all the money and then throw that around to like reload them for another run next year, where it's a little bit harder to recruit that if you get blown out. And so I guess we have to wait and see what happens in the game, and we'll decide who benefits from it, I guess. But thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.